This prison was supposed to be escape-proof, until he proved everyone wrong. Before we start, hit subscribe if you dare. Because after this story, you'll never believe a prison is escape-proof again. Iron Pass Maximum Security Facility was built on a reputation: impenetrable, escape-proof, invincible. The kind of place reporters praised in polished documentaries and wardens bragged about in interviews. Reinforced concrete walls. Motion-sensing fences. Towers that watched every inch of the yard. Even the inmates whispered that Iron Pass wasn't a prison, it was a tomb you lived inside. And yet, on a cold October morning, at 5:41 a.m., Count Block C came up one man short. Inmate number 73912, real name Cole Maddox, was missing. The moment Officer Hayes saw the empty bunk, he felt something twist in his chest, something cold. Maddox wasn't a nobody. He was a threat wrapped in quiet smiles and dead calm eyes. A former contractor with an engineering background, serving time for an armored truck robbery that was too clean, too organized, too precise. The kind of crime only someone with discipline could pull off. Hayes hit the alarm. The lights flashed blood red. Sirens screamed. Doors slammed shut across the facility. But deep down, Hayes already knew, they weren't locking the prison down to keep inmates in. They were locking it down because someone had found a way out. Warden Strickland marched into C Block with a storm behind his eyes. He didn't escape, he growled. He's hiding. Search every inch. But the search turned up nothing. No clothing. No improvised tools. No signs of a fight. No trace of Maddox at all. It was as if he had evaporated. Detectives from the State Bureau arrived within hours. Leading them was Special Investigator Lena Rourke, a quiet, sharply observant analyst who believed every crime, no matter how impossible, left fingerprints. She walked the block with careful steps, studying faces, studying silence. "Show me his file," she said. When she opened Maddox's folder, she frowned. He was a carpenter before the robbery. Hayes nodded. Worked construction. Framing. Woodwork. Concrete resale. Guy could build anything. Rourke stared at the wall beside Maddox's bunk, plain, smooth concrete. Too smooth. She tapped it with her knuckles. Hollow. The officers exchanged looks, stunned. Rourke stepped back. This wall was patched. Recently. Maintenance log said nothing. That was impossible. Every repair, every leak, every bolt tightened was logged with military precision. Iron Pass was the type of prison where even a missing screw triggered paperwork. But Maddox had spent years studying that wall. He had worked as a porter during breakfast shifts, cleaning floors, scrubbing walls. No one realized the wall behind his bed felt different because he was the one who patched it. Camouflaged it. Blended it. And then Rourke found the dust. Concrete powder, barely visible, collected under the bunk frame where the shadows were deepest. Someone had drilled. Quietly. Patiently. For months. Hayes muttered, he tunneled. Through reinforced concrete. No, Rourke said. He tunneled around it. Behind the patched section of wall was an old utility crawlspace from the original facility, something sealed decades ago in renovations. Old blueprints showed it, but nobody had checked them in years because everyone assumed Iron Pass was flawless. Maddox hadn't escaped through a wall. He'd escaped through a forgotten part of the prison everyone else stopped thinking about. Rourke's voice was steady but sharp. He's not hiding. He's gone. Before they could react, a young officer sprinted into the block, pale as chalk. You need to see this, he gasped. It was left in the laundry room. A folded note. Creased with care. Written in small, controlled handwriting. If Iron Pass is escape-proof, why am I outside? Hayes felt his stomach drop. But Rourke wasn't looking at the note. She was staring at a second sheet of paper tucked behind it, something the officer hadn't noticed. It was a map. Not of the prison. But of the town outside its perimeter. Streets. houses, back roads, and one address circled in red ink. The home of the armored truck driver who testified against Maddox. Rourke whispered, "He didn't escape to disappear." She looked up, eyes hardening. "He escaped to finish what he started." The ghost outside the fence. The briefing room felt like it had shrunk. Officers packed into every inch of space, the air thick with tension and disbelief. No one in the room had ever heard those words spoken aloud. A man escaped Iron Pass. Warden Strickland paced the front of the room like a caged animal. This facility was built to be unbreakable. Maddox didn't outsmart us. Someone helped him. Someone on the inside. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Investigator Lena Rourke leaned forward in her seat, her voice calm yet chilling. "No. He didn't need help. He needed time. And you gave it to him." She held up a printout of the decades-old blueprints. "You didn't even know this crawlspace existed." Hayes rubbed his forehead. "So where is he now?" Rourke unfolded the note again, the red-circled address glowing like a warning flare. The home of the only man who testified against him. Stanley Pike. Former armored truck driver. Now living under a witness protection light relocation program outside town. Rourke didn't waste a second. Mobilize a team. If Maddox spent years planning this, he's not improvising. He's following a timeline none of us can see. They left Iron Pass in a convoy of flashing lights, sirens muted to preserve the element of surprise. As they drove, Hayes stared out the window at the vast forests surrounding the prison. Towering pines. Wet earth. Narrow dirt paths twisting like veins. How far could he have gotten? Hayes muttered. Rourke answered without looking away from the road. He's been studying the terrain for years. He didn't run blindly. He walked straight into a plan. Miles away, in that same forest, someone was walking with purpose. Cole Maddox kept his head low, his breathing steady. His clothes, prison-issued khaki, were covered in dust and pine needles. But strapped across his back was a pack no inmate should ever have, a dark green hiking backpack filled with food, clothing, and gear. Hidden weeks earlier in a hollow log near the far fence. He navigated the woods like a man retracing old steps. This wasn't escape. This was return. Back in the convoy, Hayes tapped the folder on his lap. "What do we know about Maddox before the crime?" Rourke answered, her voice tight. Disappeared from his hometown at 19. No family. No digital footprint. When he resurfaced, he had construction skills, high-level security knowledge, and an ability to memorize floor plans after one glance. "A soldier?" Hayes asked. "Not officially," she replied. "But someone trained him." Hayes swallowed hard. "So, what's his real plan? Get revenge and vanish?" Rourke shook her head. "No. Maddox isn't emotional. He doesn't kill unless it's calculated." She tapped the note again. "He wants Pike alive." Hayes frowned. "Why?" Rourke looked out the windshield as the forest thinned and the first house came into view. "Because Pike knows something he didn't tell the police." The team approached Pike's home cautiously. It sat alone on a quiet stretch of road, surrounded by thick trees. No lights. Curtains drawn. Car in the driveway. Too still. Rourke raised a hand. "Do not enter." Hayes whispered, "You think he's inside?" "I think," her eyes narrowed, scanning the tree line. "I think we're too late." A single flashlight beam glimmered near the back of the house. Then movement. Officers fanned out, weapons drawn. Rourke rounded the corner. And froze. The back door was cracked open. The lock bent inward. A muddy boot print smeared across the threshold. Inside, the living room looked disturbed, mug knocked over, chair tilted, a photo frame on the ground. But Stanley Pike wasn't there. Instead, sitting neatly on the center table, as if placed with precision, was a folded sheet of paper. Rourke unfolded it carefully. You're following the wrong trail. She flipped it over. A second line, written with a steady, almost mocking hand. Ask the warden what he built before Iron Pass. Hayes felt his stomach drop. What does that mean? But Rourke already knew. Maddox wasn't targeting Pike. He was targeting someone inside the prison system. And whatever the warden built before Iron Pass was the real reason Maddox escaped. The truth wasn't outside the prison walls. The truth was hiding behind them. The blueprint of betrayal. The convoy sped back toward Iron Pass under a sky turning the color of bruised steel. Investigator Lena Rourke didn't speak. She didn't blink. She just kept replaying the words written in Cole Maddox's note. Ask the warden what he built before Iron Pass. Warden Strickland had brushed off his past as mostly administrative work, but something in his eyes always flickered when the topic came up. Now the flicker made sense. He wasn't protecting a prison. He was protecting a secret. Hayes broke the silence. If Maddox isn't hunting Pike, then what's his real target? The warden himself? Rourke shook her head slowly. No. If Maddox wanted Strickland dead, he would have gone straight to him. He's after something Strickland created. Something buried. As Iron Pass's towers loomed into view, the radio crackled. All units, be advised, motion detected in sublevel B, unauthorized access. Rourke stiffened. Sublevel B? That floor was sealed 10 years ago. No, Hayes said quietly. It was covered up 10 years ago. They burst through the main gates. Officers swarmed the prison interior while Rourke and Hayes stormed the administrative wing. Strickland stood outside his office, face pale. What's happening? He demanded. You tell us, Rourke said. What's in sublevel B? Strickland swallowed. Storage. Old files. Nothing important. Rourke stepped closer. Maddox left a note directing us here. He didn't escape Iron Pass to hide. He escaped to expose you. Strickland's right hand shook, just barely, but enough. Hayes saw it. Sir, what did you build before this prison? The warden's jaw tightened. Something that was never supposed to be found. Something Maddox should never have known existed. Rourke nodded slowly. Then he's already there. They descended into sublevel B, a floor untouched by staff for years. Dust coated everything. Dim bulbs flickered overhead. Pipes groaned with the weight of decades. Something about the air felt wrong, too still, too cold. As they reached the end of the hallway, they saw it. A heavy, metal door. Unlocked. Opened. Inside was a vast cement room lined with steel shelving, boxes stacked like coffins. Old documents. Confidential files. Construction plans. And in the center of the room stood Cole Maddox. Calm. Still. Waiting. Two officers aimed their weapons. Hands where we can see them. But Maddox didn't move. He simply turned toward Rourke, holding a thin binder in his hands, a binder marked with Iron Pass's logo. You came faster than I expected, he said quietly. Rourke's voice was steady. What's in the file, Cole? He opened it with deliberate care and tossed it across the floor, where it slid to Hayes's feet. Hayes crouched, picked it up, and felt his breath leave his body. Inside were blueprints. Blueprints not of Iron Pass, but of a different facility. A smaller prison. A prototype. A testing ground. Strickland's voice cracked. That project was shut down. Buried. Maddox's cold eyes pinned him. It wasn't shut down. It collapsed. Literally. 3 inmates died. You covered it up. You dumped the debris into the foundations of Iron Pass itself. Hayes looked sick. My God, the crawlspace he used wasn't an accident. It was part of that old structure. Rourke stepped closer. And you found evidence of the collapse. Maddox nodded once. This file proves everything. That's why I was framed for the armored truck robbery. That's why I was placed in Iron Pass. They needed me gone before I could speak. Strickland shouted, "That's a lie." But Rourke was already opening the binder. Inside were signatures, forged. Reports, falsified. Names, redacted. And one photo at the back. Strickland, shaking hands with the construction director associated with the failed facility. Hayes looked at the warden with horror. "You put an innocent man in prison to hide your mistakes." Strickland backed away, trembling. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Maddox lowered his hands. "I didn't escape to run. I escaped to reveal the truth." Rourke stared at him. "You still broke out. You still committed crimes." "Yes," Maddox said softly. "But now the world will know why." Officers surrounded him, cuffing him gently, cautiously, almost respectfully. Maddox didn't resist. As they led him out, he turned to Rourke with one final sentence, quiet, chilling, unforgettable. "Nothing humans build is escape-proof. Not prisons. Not lies." Rourke watched him disappear down the hall, the truth still echoing in her mind. And behind her, Strickland sank to the floor as officers closed in. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one.